So the big question on everyone's mind is, will the Snyder Cut be any good? Will it be, what's the hype that's been building for 3 years, not knowing if this movie was ever going to be released or anything like that? So I'm here to discuss it. Will this movie be as good as what we think it is? And my opinion is, it just depends the type of fan you are. So for all those people that hated Man of Steel and BVS Ultimate Cut, then you're gonna go into this movie not liking Snyder Cut, because I have like a 98% theory that this film is gonna be, catering to those people that enjoyed BVS, the people that enjoyed Man of Steel. I personally loved Man of Steel and BVS. Now, I think anyone who likes those movies, they're gonna like the Snyder Cut. I don't see it happening. I don't see Snyder changing things up. I see Snyder is probably going to get his full vision. Now, if you hated Man of Steel, if you hated BVS, if you particularly hated Man of Steel the most, then I'm going to go ahead and assume you won't like this Justice League cut. Plain and simple. And it's fine, because cinema is subjective. All movies aren't just meant for everyone. Movies are meant for different people. The horror audience will probably love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. The romantic comedy people like their movies. Comedy, they will love Adam Sandler. Me personally, I love all kinds of films. I loved Man of Steel and BVS. So I'm probably going to love Snyder Cut, because Snyder's going to cater to his audience. That's what he wanted to do. And now, of course, he's finally going to get what he was going to get. And can this movie change people's opinion on Snyder? Yeah, I think it being released already changed lots of people's opinions, considering there's this massive protest on Twitter, Instagram, all over social media about the Snyder Cut being released. Now, the main question is, will it be good? I did answer already. It depending on what kind of fan you are, depending the films you like, you will love the film depending on what type of fan. Now, will the film be good? I think more than likely it will. Man of Steel tackled the theme of choice, while BVS tackled, Western civilization's point of view on a god. And if you're someone that likes thematic movies, you're probably gonna love it. And the Snyder Cut will probably be something like that. It will have some type of theme, like thematic elements. That's why I actually prefer Zack Snyder's films over anything the MCU has ever produced. I genuinely believe Zack Snyder is one of the greatest directors ever. Not the greatest. I think there are some better than him, like Christopher Nolan, Clint Eastwood, etc., etc. And I think, Zack Snyder with this film, I think he's more going to do it for the fans that were so dedicated to what he was to the earlier films, because, for those people, Man of Steel and BVS for years has been written off as bad movies by most of the general audience. And there's a very vocal minority talking about Man of Steel and BVS. In fact, for the most part, if you go anywhere and ask people about Man of Steel or BVS, they will tell you that they hated the film. I know a ton of people that hated both films. I was always that minority. And now that those people have come out to protest for the Snyder Cut, people are now seeing, oh my god, BVS and Man of Steel had a bigger audience, because even DC comic fans hated both of those films. And I'm not saying you have to be a comic book fan to hate a film. I'm just, stating the facts. So I don't think the Snyder Cut will, I'm predicting right now that when the Snyder Cut first gets released, Rotten Tomatoes will be giving it like a 30%. I believe IMDb is going to be giving it a low score. I believe all these sources are just going to automatically give it a low score, because look what they did with BVS. Look what they did with Man of Steel. So I do think this film will be criticized as Snyder Cut. I believe, and I'm saying this now, I believe lots of people will be like, oh, am I that minority that prefers Joss Whedon's cut over Zack Snyder's cut? And that's going to happen. And then a lot of people are going to be like, well, Joss Whedon saves Zack Snyder's film. Because personally, I think Zack Snyder's filmmaking is too complex. It's why Man of Steel and BVS were highly criticized. It's why MCU fans call DC a flop, because they weren't copying the typical cookie cutter Marvel films. And I think, DC, Zack Snyder changed that landscape. And I will say this now. I do think Man of Steel and BVS and even Watchmen, which is not connected to the DCEU, but you're about to see why I talked about it. I do think those films were released way too early. Because when Watchmen came out, it was a time where comic book films were these fun, saving the world type films. Like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films. Those films were about saving New York. The Dark Knight, yeah, it was released like a year before. The Dark Knight and Batman Begins were about saving Gotham. Then, years before, you had like the previous Batman and Superman films. And then Watchmen comes, and it's about, would heroes really be these saving the world type of characters? I do think a film like Watchmen, if released nowadays, well, ignoring COVID, if COVID didn't happen, if it existed now, it would have probably hit 1 billion in the box office, and people would have been like, cinematic masterpiece, beautiful film, and it's beautiful for the superhero genre. Same thing with Man of Steel, because when Man of Steel came out, like a year before, Avengers had to come out, and so now people had this idea that you had to make, a saving the world kind of movie for like team up movies. And so when Superman in his first movie was about saving the world, I guess that like hurt people's idea in a way. And it hit harder with BVS. BVS is, when BVS came out, it didn't follow the typical Marvel formula. Marvel was solo movies for each character and then make a team up movie that saves the world. BVS was like, nah, let's introduce these characters for the next film, where characters like Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg, they would be the side characters. And I do think that's what that I do think it came ahead of its time, because you see a lot of people nowadays that hated those films appreciate BVS. Like when BVS first came out, I hated it, and then I came to like it, because now I realized the complex writing of Zack Snyder, and a lot of people are noticing that. And this does fall into the, will the Snyder Cut be good? Because now I think there is perfect timing, because there's a lot of hype building up to this Justice League film, and now more people understand Zack Snyder's filmmaking. So I do think for the most part we will be getting different reviews to this film. I do think people will be more open to the Snyder Cut, but I also believe there's going to be a ton of criticism for this film, especially since it's 4 hours. People don't really like films that are over, the 2 hour 30 minutes limit, and 4 hour film. And then people, I feel like they'll just criticize the dark tone that Snyder likes to take. And me personally, I think the Snyder Cut will be good. Now, I don't know, for those people watching this video, you could have a different opinion. I don't know what you're going to go for. You're probably going to hate the Snyder Cut, and that's completely fair. I just think you should go into the film with open eyes. And even if you hated Man of Steel, BVS, which is totally fine, which I honestly don't understand, but it's totally fine. You have those opinions. But I feel like give the Snyder Cut a chance. And even if you prefer Josh Whedon's, cut, don't go out saying, it's like we should have never gone to the Snyder Cut. No. I think the Snyder Cut is a win-win for everyone. I think the only people who are taking a loss for the Snyder Cut is Joss Whedon, Jeff Johns, and anyone at Warner Bros. That approved getting this new version of the Justice League besides the Snyder Cut. And yeah, I think that's what will happen. I think there's going to be a ton of criticism for the Snyder Cut. There's going to be a ton of people saying, oh, I prefer Joss Whedon's cut and all that. I'm seeing that. So if you're watching this video, click that like, and then when you go on your old playlist, once the Snyder Cut is released and you have the reviews and all that, you're probably going to come back to this video and be like, wow, I was right, because I genuinely believe Rotten Tomatoes will be giving it a bad score. I do believe a lot of people are going to be like, oh, the film was bad, terrible, BVS all over again. And your typical MCU fans are probably going to hate this film. Now, I could be wrong. This film could, actually be bad and then get the fair criticism. Because every director has made bad films. I mean, till this day, I don't like Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch. I mean, I do like the filming, but I don't like the story itself. But at the same time, the Snyder Cut could be a cinematic masterpiece. It could be the greatest comic book movie of all time. I genuinely believe my prediction is that the Snyder Cut will be one of the greatest comic book films of all time. I do think it could improve upon BVS, although I think BVS is super difficult to pass by, and I still think it's the best comic book movie of all time. And, it's just a tough situation. But, if the Snyder Cut's good or not, I'm still gonna... I don't care the reviews. I don't care anything. I'm gonna watch this film regardless of, what the critics say, regardless of what anyone says. I'm gonna watch the Snyder Cut. And, I can't wait.